Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down the Week 10 Thursday Night Football Showdown slate on Draftkings. Got Week 10 kicking off with the Colts and the Titans on Thursday night. Going to break down this Showdown slate like we always do. Start off at the top of the player pool and work our way down. Talk about all the playable options, all the guys that I do have interest in for this Showdown slate. And then towards the end of the video, we'll take a look at roster construction, talk about how I'm looking to build out my lineups, whether I want to pay up at captain, look to go cheap at captain, maybe build out a few lineups towards the end of the video. So before we do get started, as always, I would appreciate it if you would hit that like button down below. And if you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe as well. I do upload a ton of NFL content to this YouTube channel. I get up videos for every Monday night and Thursday night Showdown slate. I make videos for the main slate as well. First look video goes out at the beginning of the week. Final look video goes out towards the end of the week, usually on Friday. Usually post anywhere from 4 to 5 NFL videos a week, and NBA is going to be coming up soon in about a month and a half. I'll be making NBA videos every single day once NBA gets here, so I'm going to have a ton of content on the channel. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and click the notification bell so that way you get notified every time I upload and you'll never miss out on any of my new videos. But if you do enjoy these videos, one last thing, if you enjoy these videos and if they help you out a lot and you want to get more content from me, I do have stuff available on Patreon. You can check out link down below in the description if that does interest you. Obviously, it is optional, but for those of you that aren't interested, the Patreon is linked down below in the description. But let's go ahead and take a look at this slate. Start off at the top. We'll just hit on, we'll hit on the quarterbacks first, talk about them. So we got Ryan Tannehill. He's actually the most expensive player on the slate. He's $11,200 in the flex. He is $16,800 in the captain, and then you got Phillip Rivers coming in at $9,800, $1,400 less than Ryan Tannehill. So in terms of the quarterbacks, I pretty much say this every Showdown slate, and it kind of goes for every slate. The quarterbacks are always in play for me just because they project the highest. Normally, they have the highest floor out of anyone. Quarterbacks even give you higher floors than running backs and receivers. It's very hard for quarterbacks to fail and just completely tank your lineups. We saw Phillip Rivers have a bad game last Sunday, 8 DraftKings points. I would say that's a bit of an outlier performance. I mean, Phillip Rivers, I know he had a 7-point game against Cleveland, but most weeks, I mean, even if he has a bad game, you're probably going to get, 12, 13, maybe 14 DK points from Rivers. If he throws for 200 yards and a touchdown, I mean, that's still 12 DraftKings points. So I do like both quarterbacks here. Tannehill is the most expensive player on the slate, so it might be a bit tougher to get him in. He has been really good this season. He still has a pretty low floor. He's not the most highest upside quarterback. He has had a few big games, 30 against Buffalo, 33 against Houston. But we still see, he can go out there and put up 15, 16 DK points. He's not on the level that some of the elite quarterbacks in the league are, like Russell Wilson, Kyler, Mahomes. Those guys, even on bad weeks, give you 24, 25 DK points. Like Tannehill definitely has a low floor, but there is still some upside. I think it really just comes down to how you construct your lineups. If you want to play A.J. Brown or Corey Davis or one of his pass catchers, then you probably want to play Tannehill. But me personally, I think I'm going to be looking to Derrick Henry. I really like Derrick Henry. I think in a scenario where Tannehill puts up a floor game, that probably means that Derrick Henry is scoring the touchdowns. Like if Tannehill doesn't pass, maybe Tannehill only has one passing touchdown, I would say it's likely that the reason that is because either the defense played really well and maybe the defense got some touchdowns, or Derrick Henry punched in the touchdown. So I probably wouldn't play Tannehill and Henry in the same lineup. I think you're probably going to want to choose one of the two. I just don't see a scenario where you get like a ceiling game from both Henry and Tannehill. We know Henry does not really catch passes, so there's not going to be a scenario where Tannehill throws for 4 touchdowns and then Henry also has 2 touchdowns. Like that's just not going to happen unless the Titans just go out here and just completely crap on the Colts. So I think you're going to want to choose between one of the two, and I'd rather go to Henry. We'll talk about him in a second, but I do like Phillip Rivers for $9,800. I like the savings you get dropping down from Tannehill to Rivers. I think I'm going to have more interest in the Colts pass catchers than the Titans pass catchers, just because the Titans' top 2 pass catchers, Corey Davis and A.J. Brown, they are pretty expensive. It is going to be tough to pay up for those guys, especially if you're trying to get in someone like Derrick Henry, whereas T.Y. Hilton's really cheap. Even Zach Pascal, these guys you could look to, are very affordable. Trey Burton as well. I'm probably going to be looking more towards Rivers than Tannehill. I'm probably going to have more exposure to Rivers than Tannehill. Not saying Rivers is going to outscore Tannehill, but if he can at least come close, let's say Tannehill puts up 20 points and Rivers puts up 18 points, if I can only have one of those two guys, I think Rivers would be the guy that I'd want to get to, save the salary, save $1,400, and use that to spend elsewhere. Look, I know Rivers has been bad this season. He doesn't really have a ton of weapons in this Colts offense. Like T.Y. Hilton's had a really bad year. Zach Pascal's a solid receiver, but he doesn't have the same weapons that he had when he was with the Chargers. When he was with the Chargers, he had Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Hunter Henry, Austin Eckler out of the backfield. Like, he had a lot of weapons in L.A. Not the same here in Indianapolis with the Colts, but this is still a guy that can go out there and throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like, he hasn't done it much this season. He's really only done that once so far. But still, there is somewhat of some upside for Phillip Rivers. I like the savings you get dropping down from Tannehill to Rivers. I think Tannehill, look, he's been good this year, but he still has a pretty low floor. He still can go out there and put up 14, 15 DK points. So if I'm going to play one of the two quarterbacks, I'd rather just play the cheaper one. I think both these two guys are going to project somewhat similarly, probably within a couple of points. So I'd rather go to Rivers just between the two quarterbacks. But then the running backs, we'll go there. You got Derrick Henry for $10,800. I definitely like Derrick Henry. I think he's one of the better just overall spend-up options on this Showdown slate. I think I would rather play him over Ryan Tannehill. Look, Derrick Henry also has a very low floor. This is a guy that can go out there and put up 7, 8 DK points, especially if he doesn't score any touchdowns. Like, he is pretty touchdown dependent. We kind of saw that Week 9 against the Bears. Like, he only had 68 rushing yards with 0 touchdowns, finished with 6.8 DK points. Like, that is in the range of outcomes for Derrick Henry, but he also has the chance to, go for 120 rushing yards and maybe 1, possibly 2 touchdowns. He's not going to get a ton of receptions. He's not really used much in the passing game, but we know he is going to get a ton of carries, especially if they are playing with a lead, which is quite possible here. They are at home. They are favored as well by 2. This game does have somewhat of a high total at 49. We could see a scenario where maybe the Titans get a lead and they kind of feed Derrick Henry. Even if they get down, Henry's still going to be involved. He'll still get probably 15 to 20 carries, potentially more depending on game script. If they're down like 14-0, then yeah, I'd be a little bit concerned, but I don't really see that happening. So I really like Derrick Henry here. It's not the best matchup against the Colts. The Colts have a really good run defense, but Henry's one of these guys I kind of consider matchup proof. Like, he's one of the best running backs in the league in terms of, running in between the tackles, just running dudes over. It doesn't really matter. Henry's going to find a way to get yards, to score touchdowns. We know if they get down to the goal line that Derrick Henry is going to be punching it in. So I really like Derrick Henry. I think he is one of the better pay-up options overall. Me personally, when it comes to him, Tannehill, or A.J. Brown, I think I'd rather play Henry between those 3 guys. Obviously, all 3 are playable, but if I can only choose one, I think I would rather go with Derrick Henry there. But then the running back situation for the Colts, so this is one that's pretty tough to gauge. Right now, it's kind of a 3-headed committee with Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines, and Jordan Wilkins all getting touches. Last week, Taylor got 6 carries, 2 receptions, so he got 8 total touches. If we look at Nyheim Hines, we know Hines, he's not going to get many carries. He's not really involved in the running game, but he will get a lot of work in the passing game, especially if they're playing from behind. Last week, he got 2 carries, 3 targets, 2 receptions, so he got 4 touches. So we had 8 touches for Jonathan Taylor, 4 touches for Nyheim Hines, and then Jordan Wilkins actually led the backfield in touches, 11 carries and 2 receptions for 13 total touches. Look, it's really hard to gauge what they're going to do here. I thought whenever Marlon Mack went down for the season that Jonathan Taylor was going to get, kind of a workhorse role, and that did happen week 2 against Minnesota. Week 3 against the Jets, though, it kind of only 14 touches that game. They were playing with a really big lead that game. They didn't really need to push Taylor. But since the Minnesota game, things have just gone downhill for Jonathan Taylor. He's not getting the elite usage that I thought he would get, especially the last 2 weeks. Just 13 touches against Detroit. And like I said earlier, just 8 last week against Baltimore. I'm definitely concerned with Jonathan Taylor. I don't know, I just don't know what the Colts are going to do. If they get down to the goal line, is it going to be Jonathan Taylor punching it in? Is it going to be Wilkins punching it in? We don't really know. I think I'd probably just rather play Wilkins because he's almost $3,000 less. I think he actually is $3,000 less. He's $3,400 less than Jonathan Taylor. And we could easily see a scenario where Wilkins gets more touches than Taylor. That's been the case just the last 2 weeks. It seems like he's kind of, Wilkins is kind of trending in the right direction, whereas, Jonathan Taylor kind of trending down. His touches have been going down, whereas Wilkins has been going up. So between the 2 running backs, between Wilkins and Taylor, I think I'd rather go with Wilkins here, $5,400. Look, he's pretty affordable. He's not a starter by any means. He's not going to get a workhorse role, but he'll still get probably 13 to 14 touches, get a few targets as well. or get probably 10 to 12 carries and a few targets as well. I don't want to go to Nyheim Hines. I think, at 6,200, he's just not going to get as much usage as those guys. He had a big game week 8 against Detroit, but, he got 2 receiving touchdowns in that game. Most likely that's not going to happen. Most weeks you're not getting that kind of performance from Nyheim Hines. So between the Colts backfield, between their 3 running backs, Taylor, Hines, and Wilkins, I think Wilkins is my favorite, factoring in salary. I think he could easily lead this backfield in touches, and he's only 5,400. So he's the guy that I would look to go to from the Colts backfield. I don't think I'm going to be paying 8,800 for Jonathan Taylor. He's just really hard to trust right now. We don't know what his workload's going to look like. I'd rather get up to Phillip Rivers, who has a much higher floor than Taylor, or even drop down to some of these cheaper options that we'll talk about. But moving on to the receivers, we'll start off with the Tennessee receivers since they're the 2 most expensive. You got A.J. Brown at 10,400. You got Corey Davis at 7,800. So A.J. Brown's, he's been awesome this year. Since returning from his injury in Week 5, 21, 22, 30, 12, 23 DK points. He's been about as good as it gets, getting plenty of targets, 7, 8, 9 targets every single week. The matchup is not the best against the Colts. The Colts have been, a really good defensive team overall this year, but it's a single-game showdown slate. We can't really get too picky. Like I said earlier, I don't see myself paying $10,400 for A.J. Brown when I can get Derrick Henry for just a little bit more. I would rather play Henry over Brown, but, if I'm playing multiple lineups, I would still get exposure to A.J. Brown. I still think he is a very high upside option. Me personally, though, I would probably just rather go to Henry and then, kind of look to the pass catchers from the Colts, who we'll talk about, who are very affordable. But then you got Corey Davis for 7,800. I think Corey Davis, probably a little bit too expensive for me. I don't really see myself paying the salary for him. He was on a really good stretch, playing really, really well. Had his first bad game of the year last week against the Bears. 0 receptions on 3 targets, finished with a donut in that game. Since then, though, or before that game, 28, 20, or 29, 15, 11, 12, 20 Draftkings points. Like, he had been really good this year. For 7,800, though, I don't see myself paying that price for him. I'd rather probably just get up to A.J. Brown or just maybe drop down to, like I said, those cheaper Colts receivers who I think are probably going to get more volume. I think this Colts team probably going to be playing from behind. I expect the Titans to win here, so I'd rather target the Colts receivers, who we'll talk about in a second. The secondary Tennessee receivers are kind of hard to trust. Like, Adam Humphries was out last week, but we only saw, I believe, Raymond played on like 25% of the snaps. Watson played on, I think, like 23% of the snaps. Like, Watson and Batson, it was Batson. So Batson and Humphries, were barely involved last week. Batson and Raymond, were barely involved last week with Humphries out. We'll have to keep an eye on Humphries' status. Looks like he's going to remain in the concussion protocol, so we'll have to see if Humphries plays. For 4,600, he could be viable as a cheap receiver, but I probably won't be really looking to these secondary Tennessee receivers. If I'm going to target any pass catchers from Tennessee, it's probably going to be Corey Davis. It's probably going to be, A.J. Brown. I'll try and just pay it for those guys. Or even Jonnu Smith, but even 7K, like Jonnu Smith feels a bit overpriced. I don't know if I can really pay that price tag for Jonnu Smith. The volume hasn't really been there. He's still playing a ton of snaps. He's still their number 1 tight end, but we've seen A.J. Brown kind of really dominate the pass catchers for Tennessee. We know this is a Tennessee team that wants to run the ball as much as possible, and I think that could be the case here. They'll try and do that with Derrick Henry. So the Tennessee passing game as a whole, I'll probably be underweight on. If I'm going to play any pass catcher from Tennessee, I think it is going to be A.J. Brown at 10,400. But let's talk about the Colts pass catchers. So this is where I do have more interest. So we got Zach Pascal for 6,400. We have T.Y. Hilton for 5,800. Trey Burton, 5,600. And then you got like Marcus Johnson. Mo Alley-Cox, will have to keep an eye on his status. Looks like he is going to play, but listed as questionable. He was listed as a limited participant in their estimated practice on Tuesday. We haven't gotten Wednesday's practice yet. I'm recording this Wednesday afternoon. I'm going to post this video to YouTube on Wednesday night. That will be something to monitor. If Mo Alley-Cox is out, that would just make me feel better about Trey Burton, because we already know that Jack Doyle is most likely going to be out. He's listed as doubtful. But then you have like Michael Pittman for 4,400. He's going to be pretty hard to trust now that T.Y. Hilton is back. He played a good amount of snaps last week, but that was mainly due to, Hilton being out. So I think in terms of Colts pass catchers, we're probably going to be looking to Zach Pascal, T.Y. Hilton, Trey Burton, and maybe Marcus Johnson. We'll start off with Zach Pascal. He is the most expensive Colts pass catcher, 6,400. I don't think I'm going to be going to Pascal at this price tag. I know that T.Y. Hilton has had a really bad year. He has not been good at all this season, but he's still pretty affordable. He's only 5,800. I still believe that T.Y. Hilton is the number one receiver for this Colts team when he is healthy. He still gets pretty solid volume. I mean, only got 2 targets week 8, but 5 targets, 10 targets, 5 targets. Like, he's going to see anywhere from probably 6 to 8 targets most weeks. He's only 5,800. Look, he's been terrible this year. His best game was week 5 against Cleveland, where he had 6 catches for 69 yards. Like, he's been complete dust, but we know this is a guy that still has some talent. He's normally someone I like to target when he's at home because he seems to play better at home in the dome. Especially last season, I played T.Y. Hilton a lot when he was at home. I really haven't played him at all this year. He just hasn't been the same receiver that he was last year. But this is still a number one receiver, a talented guy, a guy that has, decent route running ability, has some solid speed. For 5,800, between him and Pascal, I think I'd rather save salary and play Zach Pascal, especially if people are going to be, hesitant to go to T.Y. Hilton because of how bad he's been this season. I still think there is some upside for him. I still think there's some security in his volume. I think most weeks he's going to be out there for 90+% of the snaps. He's going to see probably 6 to 8 targets. Eventually he's going to find the end zone. He's going to have a solid game. I like T.Y. Hilton quite a bit at 5,800. I don't mind Pascal, but I think I feel a little bit better with Hilton. Trey Burton, I do have a good amount of interest in, especially if Mo Alley-Cox winds up out. That'll pretty much mean that Trey Burton will be the only healthy tight end they have left, or at least healthy tight end that I expect to play a good amount of snaps. If Mo Alley-Cox plays, it'll be a two-headed committee with Burton and Cox, but I still think Burton is the guy that we want to go to. He's been solid, just the last few weeks. He wasn't great last week against Baltimore, but that was a pretty tough matchup. But week 6 against Cincinnati, 4 catches for 58 yards and a touchdown. He also had a rushing touchdown in that game. And then week 8 against Detroit, 4 targets, 3 catches for 9 yards, and he had a rushing touchdown in that game as well. The rushing touchdowns I think are a bit fluky. You don't expect that to happen every week, but this is a guy that has shown some upside. Last year when he was with the Bears, he's a solid pass catcher, a decent receiving tight end. The Titans are a team you can beat with opposing tight ends. I'm pretty sure in terms of DVOA against the position, they are towards the bottom of the league. So I do like Trey Burton. I like his price tag at 5,600. I would rather play him over Mo Alley-Cox. Jack Doyle being doubtful is really the main reason I'm going to be looking to these guys because it just kind of frees up a few targets, frees up more playing opportunity for both Burton and Cox. Between the two, though, I think I would rather go to Burton. Marcus Johnson for 5,200. You could look to, but I'd probably rather go to T.Y. Hilton. I'd rather get up to maybe Trey Burton as well. Marcus Johnson did get 7 targets last week. Just 2 receptions, though, for 14 yards. Didn't have the best game overall. He was a little bit popular on the main slate because he was minimum salary on the main slate. And T.Y. Hilton was out last week. Now that T.Y. Hilton is coming back, I'm not confident in Marcus Johnson. I'm not confident in Michael Pittman. I think if I'm going to target Colts pass catchers, I want to go to Pascal, I want to go to Hilton, and I want to go to Trey Burton. Those are the 3 guys I feel the most confident in, the 3 guys that are going to be on the field the most. We know Pascal and Hilton are going to be, their top 2 receivers, the 2 guys that play the most. Probably both Pascal and Hilton are going to play, 85, 90+% of the snaps. So those are the guys I'm most confident in. I don't really see myself paying $5,200 for Marcus Johnson. And like I said, Michael Pittman, he's going to be really hard to trust now that T.Y. Hilton's healthy. Pascal's, healthy and playing well. Going to be hard to go to Pittman at 4,400. Plus, Marcus Johnson has seemed to kind of pass him in the totem pole as well. He's pretty much their 4th receiver at this point. Don't really see myself going to him at 4,400. So we kind of talked about, receivers and tight ends. Now, looking like at the value plays, the kickers, the defenses. Normally, I don't love playing defenses, and I don't really see myself going to the defenses here. If I was going to play one of the 2 defenses, it would definitely be the Titans. 3,600 against the Colts. We saw last week and pretty much a lot this season, Phillip Rivers will turn the ball over. He will take sacks. He really just hasn't been good this year. This is definitely a solid spot for the Titans defense. What is their upside? Probably not much. Even if they get a defensive touchdown, they could still finish with just 8 or 9 DraftKings points depending on how many points they give up. You really have to luck box into a defensive touchdown for a defense to make the winning lineup, and I just don't really want to try and bank on defensive touchdowns, so I don't see myself going to the defenses. If you force me to play one, I'd go with the Titans, but I'm probably going to be fading both defenses in general. The kickers, I think, are fine to go to. Normally, I don't play both kickers, but if you want to go to one of the 2, kickers can give you 10 to 12 points. Sometimes we'll see kickers have big games where they make 3 or 4 field goals, and they'll put up 15, 16 points. I don't want to bank on that, but we could definitely see the kickers make the winning lineup, at least one of the two, especially because the value is pretty tough. Like, there's not many plays under 5K you feel great about. Like, even if Mo Alley Cox plays, it's hard to trust him at this point with Trey Burton playing well. Adam Humphries, you never know what you're going to get from him. He could put up 6 catches, 60 yards and a touchdown. He could put up 1 catch for 5 yards. Like, his floor is really, really low. You don't really know what you're going to get from Humphries. Pittman's hard to trust right now with T.Y. Hilton back, with Marcus Johnson seeming to pass him in the totem pole. Zach Pascal's playing well. So really the value's tough. Like, even under the kickers, like, there's not many value plays you're going to feel good about. Anthony Fursker was getting solid volume. He did get 6 targets last week, even with Jonnu Smith healthy. But with Jonnu Smith playing, I don't really want to go to Fursker. At this point, he's just kind of a backup tight end. Then maybe run some 2 tight end sets, and we'll see Fursker get on the field with Smith. But when Smith is healthy, I don't really want to bank on Fursker. Harris is going to be really hard to trust. He's not going to get the volume with all these other guys healthy. He's pretty much their 5th string wide receiver at this point. Khalif Raymond, even with Adam Humphries out last week, only played on like 25% of the snaps, only saw 1 target. He's going to be really hard to trust, or he didn't see a target at all. He played on 25% of the snaps last week and didn't see a single target. So even if Humphries misses again, I don't really want to go to Khalif Raymond, even though he's 1K. He's going to be hard to trust. So the value is pretty tough. I think playing one of the 2 kickers for salary relief is fine, in my opinion. I really have no problem with that at all. But yeah, I think we broke down the player pool from top to bottom. We talked about, all the playable options, the guys I'm most interested in. Let's take a look at roster construction. Maybe we'll build out a lineup where we pay up at captain, see what we can do, and then we'll build out a lineup where we go a little bit cheaper at captain. So I think if I'm paying up at captain, that Derrick Henry is probably my favorite guy to pay up for at captain. If I'm assuming that Henry has a big game, that's probably going to mean that Ryan Tannehill is not having a good game, because there's not really a scenario. I don't see a scenario where Henry goes for 150 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns and Tannehill throws for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like, that's just not going to happen. So if Henry has a big game, that probably means he's scoring the touchdowns, and that means that Tannehill is not scoring the touchdowns. So we probably want to fade Tannehill in that case. I want to get one of the 2 quarterbacks in, though, so we'll plug in Phillip Rivers into this build at 9,800. And now let's try and find some value. We talked about these cheap Colts pass catchers that I do like. Look, T.Y. Hilton's been complete dust this year, but I think for 5,800, there's still some meat on the bone. That is a very affordable price tag. I do like T.Y. Hilton. I don't mind Zach Pascal either. Trey Burton, I have a good amount of interest in at 5,600. Jordan Wilkins, I think, is a good value as well. He's the guy I like most from the Colts backfield. I think we'll plug him into this build for 5,400 and see what that leaves us. 6,400 remaining for our last 2 spots. I don't know if we can really pay up here. Like, we probably can't play A.J. Brown. Yeah, if we do that, we're only left with 2,400. There's really not anyone I feel good about under that price range. Obviously, if I'm playing Wilkins, I probably don't want to play Jonathan Taylor. If we go with Corey Davis, that leaves us enough to play like Adam Humphries or Mo Alley Cox, but I don't really feel great about that build either. This is pretty tough. There's not really much to work with. We might want to play both quarterbacks just to secure that floor that Tannehill has. Even if Tannehill throws for, let's say, 250 yards and a touchdown and maybe runs for 20 yards, let's say he gets, I'm doing the math in my head, let's say he gets like 16 points. Like, he could still make the winning lineup. Although I don't love playing Henry at captain with Tannehill, because I think that kind of kills your upside. In a game like this, like, we could see Tannehill still make the winning lineup even if he only scores like 15 or 16 points. So let's see if we can put Tannehill in here. We might not be able to. If we do that, we got 3,500 remaining for our last 2 spots. So let's see. We could play one of the 2 kickers. That would leave us enough. Yeah, still wouldn't leave us enough for much. This is pretty tough to build around with Henry at captain. Like, yeah, as you can see, playing Henry at captain is kind of tough. I mean, you're going to have to play someone cheap. We probably just want to plug in one of the kickers, just see what that leaves us with. 7,200 remaining per player. So I guess that's probably the way you're going to have to go to. You're going to have to play one of the 2 kickers. We're not going to be able to get Tannehill into this build. We might be able to get A.J. Brown, though. Yeah, if we play A.J. Brown, that leaves us enough to play the other kicker. I mean, normally I don't like playing both kickers, but because the value is so thin, I mean, we could see a scenario where both kickers score like 10 points, and that could be good enough given, all these other value plays don't really project for anything close to that. Normally I don't like playing both kickers, but I could see doing it if it makes your lineup work. And, this is a scenario where playing both kickers does fit our lineup build. We got Henry in there at captain with Rivers, Hilton, A.J. Brown, and then both kickers. A build that I don't mind, but as you can see, it is pretty tough to pay up at captain for a guy like Derrick Henry. I think Henry has a good game, but is he going to smash to the point where we have to have him at captain? Possibly not. So I think that's where, we could look to maybe a cheaper captain. One of these Colts pass catchers I think is going to have a solid game. Good luck picking which one it's going to be, but I like T.Y. Hilton the most. I still think he has some upside. He still has some gas left in the tank. Let's play T.Y. Hilton at captain at 8,700. If we're doing that and we're assuming he has a solid game, then we want to correlate our lineups and pair him with Phillip Rivers. Because we went a little bit cheaper at captain, this might allow us to get in both quarterbacks, to get in Ryan Tannehill. If we're playing Tannehill, I don't think we're going to have the salary to really pay up for anyone else. We might be able to get A.J. Brown in there. If we do plug in, we could get A.J. Brown. We plug him in. Now we got $49.50 left remaining per player for our last two spots. Let's just say we plug in Gostkowski, one of the two kickers. That leaves us $6,100. So, we got plenty of salary to work with. We got enough to play like Trey Burton for $5,600. So, that's a lineup, honestly, that I feel a little bit more comfortable with. We don't have Derrick Henry in this lineup, but, if we wanted to, we could take out A.J. Brown and replace him with Derrick Henry. I think, me personally, I like going a little bit cheaper at captain. I'm not saying T.Y. Hilton's going to be the highest scoring player on the slate, but if he gets maybe 5 catches, 50 yards, a touchdown, if he gets 15 points, he could be a viable captain play. Like, we could see him make the winning lineup at captain as long as no one else, goes out there and smashes. And I don't think this is going to be a scenario where we see a guy like put up a 30-point game. Like, I think Derrick Henry might get 100 yards and a touchdown, but is he going to put up 30 Draftkings points against this Colts defense? Probably not. Is A.J. Brown going to have another monster game against this Colts defense? Probably not. So I like looking a little bit cheaper at captain here, playing a guy like T.Y. Hilton, or even, Zach Pascal, even Trey Burton if you want to go that route. Probably going to be a slate where I do look to pay in this, kind of 8K, 7K range for my captain plays. Just a little bit tougher to pay up for the top guys when, there's not much value. It's going to be really tough to fit in a guy like Henry or A.J. Brown at captain with all the, thin value plays that we do have. So that's just kind of how I'm looking to approach this Showdown slate. It should be a fun one, should be a solid game. 2-point spread here, project to be close, pretty high total as well at 49. No millionaire maker for this Thursday night game, but still $500K to first. I assume they dropped down the prize pools because of the Masters, with so many people playing the Masters contest on Thursday. That's probably the reason the prize pools went a little bit down, but $500K to first, still big money out there, a lot of money to be won. Still going to be playing the Showdown slate, so I hope you guys did enjoy this video. I really do appreciate you watching. If you enjoyed, hit that like button before you do get out of here. Hit the subscribe button as well. Be sure to click that notification bell so that way you do get notified every time I upload. You'll never miss out on any of my new videos. And if you do really enjoy these videos and if they help you out a lot and you want to get more content from me, feel free to check out the Patreon link down below in the description. If you want to see all the content or additional content I do have to offer, that is available on Patreon, link down below in the description. But best of luck Thursday night, guys. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you did enjoy. Hope it helped, and we will see you in the next one. Good luck, guys. Peace.